I am so pleased to welcome Carmen Bravo Alejo to the Empowering Educators Summit. I'm very thrilled because, Carmen, you were of particular significance in my educational path through sharing with me project-based learning and super empowered learning at the Modern Academy Cancun campus when we got to be co-teachers together. So I say a warm and heartfelt welcome to you.
Thank you so much, Diane. I feel the same way. I'm very honored to be here. Thank you so much.
Carmen has a rich background in education that she will introduce to you directly, but I do want to just honor the example that she and her partner, co-founder are doing in Mexico. This is being recorded between Mexico and the US, an excellent example of bridge building. And what you're doing is an example of a transformed learning environment because the motto for your school is do what you love and love what you do. And I'm so curious to hear more about the school and what you've been doing and just hear who you are. Please do share.
Okay, thank you, Diane. Well, I am a Montessori guide and a passionate educator. I've worked in Montessori environments as well as project-based learning programs. I'm working right now with my very close friend and much admired colleague, Paloma Bosch, at building Meraki School in Cancun, Mexico. We are working on building an educational community that embraces the importance to physical, mental, and emotional aspects for our students. We want to form complete individuals aware of themselves and the world around them. We want to be part of this transformation of education. We are really we really believe that we need to break the idea that learning is just passing information from teacher to students. We believe that learning, or we know that learning is active, not passive. The student is a protagonist on their own learning, and the teacher is a guide to help the students to learn, only just to provide them the tools for the students to acquire autonomy and self-regulation and to know themselves and go through the path of learning. We want to find the natural interest of the students into learning, and we do that through projects and activities and experiences that encourage their curiosity, their creativity, and their intellectual abilities.
And you are serving as the director, or what is your title there?
I am the academic coordinator.
Coordinator. So
we are co-creating the program.
And tell us why you chose the word Meraki for the name of the school.
Oh, that's very special because Meraki is a word that means to do something with passion from the heart with absolute devotion. And it's not only because we are doing it like that, like as we do Meraki, but that we want the students to find that feeling of doing something with passion, not because someone asked you to do it, just because you really want to. You really feel it. And that's also why the slogan is do what you love and love what you do, because when you do what you love, you really enjoy it and you do love it. But first you need to know what you love, because if you don't have the freedom or the opportunity to experience things, then how would you know that you love something? If we ask the students to do what we want them to do or what we love, then they will never find what they are. They will be what we want them to be, but not what they really are. So that's what we want to change. We don't want to do like uh, like more like
Me,
sorry. Okay, thank you. It's just that English is my second language.
thank you
But
for
okay,
being willing. Thank you for
thank you.
that.
So we don't want to cookie cutter them. We don't want them to be all the same, right? We want them to be themselves. So what we do is to be a guide to help them find themselves. And when you find yourself, then you're happy because you are really enjoying and doing what you want. It's freedom too.
Well, I very much hear the honoring of the spirit of the child. That much is certainly clear. And I know also that at the same time, you're having to do a big balancing act because you're also accountable to the, the state, the governmental expectations. And I'm very curious how you're balancing, those two far ends of the extreme, because I don't think the government has, the student loving school as their priority. There's like, they need to know this and this and this, but how do you help them to love it and allow that process at the same time as accountability?
Okay, that's still a challenge. Education is changing. We're being part of a revolution. That's the truth. And it is changing for the governments too, but it just goes slow, right? It's just going slow. So it is a big challenge to have everything done. But what we do is we know the outcomes. We have the learning outcomes that the government wants the students to have in a certain age. And what we do is that we engage students through a project that connects them to a real situation, to a real life experience. And then we just go through the learning outcomes using that topic and using the project to engage them. For example, if there are snails in the yard and the students are really curious about snails, then, and you're teaching them how to read, then it makes sense to have them read the parts of the snail, right? Or to learn, they will be willing to read if they are interested on what they are reading. So if they need to know what it is, um, like a text, like a
Like,
story, or like different kinds of texts, then you can go through that topic with them, and that just makes sense. It sounds very simple, but it is just something that you feel you just need to be aware of what they are telling you and what they want, and you have to give them the opportunity also to be part of that process instead of coming with the text that you want them to read. Then you're just watching and feeling and just following them, and but you know your outcomes. You just have to be sure that you are covering them.
I just want to validate that I saw that in action so much. And it was through your inspiration where we saw in the playground recess time that, oh my goodness, they're discovering snails. And then out of that came, well, let's keep a few. How do you keep some in a container where they are going to continue to live, caring for your natural environment? How do we learn the parts of the snail? How do you research and get very interested in the reading at that point to be able to create a presentation where then one student gets to be the teacher to another? There just were so many aspects to just that one discovery and it happened with the birds and the bees. I mean, we learned so much and about the interrelationships of nature as part of that. There was a lot, and the gardening, all of it was
Yeah.
project-based. And we really empowered the students in the process where they shared presentations all the time.
I just think it makes it meaningful for them. And then they become experts in snails or experts in planets or whatever they are interested on, experts in dinosaurs. But they are also learning what it is an informational text, or even fractions, or additions, subtractions, whatever they need to learn, but they're learning through a real experience, and it just makes sense for them. Like, why should I learn English, or why should I learn math? What it does it make sense to me? Because for us as adults, we use our times wisely, right? And we can decide to take a course of something that makes sense for us and that is meaningful for us. But with kids, we just decide, well, in traditional education, you just decide for them what they need to learn. And maybe we know what they need to learn, but it just have to make sense for them too. So that they do it with love, because they will do it anyway. But do you want them to really be engaged and love it and love going to school and learning?
Well, I have
Then
a
it,
question for you about that, because sometimes even as adults, we don't know about what we love until we get exposed to it. And so that could certainly be true for children. Like, I didn't know that I had such a passion for math until it was presented in this way, for example, or until I learned about music, or that I could sing. That sometimes we have to expose students. And so I'm curious about how you get students curious. Like, how do you invite that curiosity in order to discover that perhaps they do love it?
well, that's another challenge, because we the education has been like very squared for a long time. It has been like everybody has to be on the same page at the same time, at the same pace, you know. But what we want to do is to give them the opportunity to have some freedom to choose. So first, as teachers, we need to give different, to expose them to different situations: art, music, math, and then give them some free time to just choose work, right? And just to choose something that they are interested on and deepen into it, and then share it with other students. And that's something else, like letting students to show up their strengths and use their abilities with others, make them feel confident. And also it helps them inspire, like they get inspiration from other students. So that's another way to use. Maybe if you have a student that likes origami, just you see that, right? And then you let that student show other kids what he knows and what he can do. And then maybe some of them will feel inspired and try it. And maybe they will find something that they love and they didn't know. But you just have to give them the time. I think that's the key. Just to sometimes just go under pace, just give the time for some freedom in the classroom. If you have a tight agenda, then it's very hard to really feel them, observe them, or let them understand themselves.
Hmm. And I really remember that example of one boy just loving spiders, and he researched it so deeply and drew about spiders and made a book about spiders and made a technological presentation for the TV, and wow, we had a lot of other students wanting to present after that because they were inspired by their peer rather than pushed by the teacher. And it was a very different dynamic. And I think the multi-age groups
Yes,
helped to make that happen. There was
that's very
mutual
helpful.
leadership.
Yes, in Meraki, we don't have, not all the groups are multi-aged, but I do think it is a great way to work because the older students are great leaders for younger students, and it just feels very natural. And it's the natural way to interact among human beings. We don't interact only with people of our age, right? So it just feels natural in the classroom. And I do remember that kid, he was very resistant to work, and it just changed his uh,
Motivation.
motivation, yes, to just let him do an investigation about spiders because that was his interest. And he was going through the learning outcomes because he was learning spelling and grammar and everything we had to do with him anyway, but he was just doing it through the spiders investigation. And then he did the presentation and all the students were very inspired. At the end, many of them did their own presentations too afterwards. So that's what
Exactly.
happens when you just let them be.
And I just really remember how you used the power of story very effectively. Like you would sometimes read to them, and then, or we used story cubes and they would tell their own story. But there was an attentive listening through the power of story as we would sit in a circle or sit in a group, and using that very effectively, not just from um, always the teacher to the children, but that the children were able to create their own stories as well, first through the cubes and then just
Mhm.
freely.
Yes, well, one of the government learning outcomes that school year was just learning what a narrative text is. So it was part of just covering the program, but it was through their own creativity. So they were very engaged, just making up their own stories. And it was a great experience to see them just so engaged writing and sharing and making like a library to share to others. It was, and I think it's part of the same thing we have been talking about. It's just give them some freedom to create, because it's not the same thing just to read it on a textbook and answer some exercises about it, and maybe they will just forget about it, rather than experience it and doing it and give some sense to it, because it was not a random story, it was their stories, what they were sharing. That was what made it special.
Mm. I'm curious about how technology integrates into your learning environment at Meraki, because I was definitely moved by it at Mac. And I'm curious what you've taken with you and what you value and how it's working there. Like,
Yes.
are you integrating it into the learning environment in the same way?
Okay, well, that is something that I experienced at Mac that changed my way to teach forever. Like using technology, it was something new for me, and it just feels like it is the natural uh, language of students nowadays, because they are growing in a different stage of like in a different generation that that needs technology, like that they have seen it since they were babies, and it is so natural for them just to use it, and it does motivates them. They love it, and it's a great tool. It's a great tool for creation, and it's just an extension of the classroom that gives you like a infinity of possibilities. So it just makes a lot of sense to use it to create and to teach too, like to teach them how to create themselves
Can
their
you
thing.
list some of
And
those
but also,
examples?
yes, for well, we used a lot of the Apple programs, and they became experts using Keynote for presentations. And there's a big range of things that you can use, that you can do using Keynote. You can make videos, you can make presentations, and there's also pages to make triptychs, triptychos, yes. And you can use a movie maker, like that you can edit video to create something yourself, and it's just so easy to do it.
I also want to remember how you showed me Kahoot, and well, I was amazed at the way the kids got so involved when they could all see, like, oh, there's my answer up on the screen, and then you made it like a guessing game of, did you have the right answer? And the quizzes were so involved and interesting, and the content became very alive through that Kahoot app. I also saw the mind map app used, very like, this led to this, led to that, which was the outline for writing. And
yes,
the multiplication was used so that, yes, here it is digitally, and integrated the sensorial, like, let's count. If I had 3 5s, how many beads do I have? And they also had the tactile sensorial learning materials. So it was a real merging of it to make it interesting.
yes, I mean, there are many uh, many apps that we can use for gamification just to make it fun for them. And why can't we make learning fun? Like it's just so. Remember using Math Ninja for multiplications? It was just a game for them, and it was supposed to be for the second graders, but at the end the first graders were so into it that they started learning the multiplications too, and they just memorize them so quickly and fun, in a fun way. So learning should be fun, and technology allows you to make it fun for them. And well, it's both things. One is for teaching, like a teaching tool or like a practice tool, but also I love using technology to let them create, and that's something that is very engaging too. We use technology at Meraki. We don't use only iPads. We let them bring whatever they have, if they have iPads or tablets. So sometimes it makes it challenging because you don't use the same apps, or for example, you can't use Keynote on a tablet, but there are many apps that can be used in both, or even in a computer. And we use a program that is named Smartic, or Smartic, and it's a Spanish app, and it's for math. And it allows the students to be where they are in math. It just assesses them and puts them in the right level. It doesn't matter if they are in first grade, second grade. You can have a first grader doing third grade maths, or you can have a third grader doing first grade maths if they are there. So it is very helpful to cover lagoons, to cover like some learning outcomes that they didn't master. And also it is very engaging and fun for them. It's like a game, but they are learning and they are practicing, and we just use it to practice every day. Math should be practiced every day, just to have the mind fresh. And we, instead of having like a textbook to practice every day, we use Smartick for everyday practice. And also we use the Cuisinart rods and other manipulative materials to teach math. But just for practice, we use Smartick, and it's a paid app, and it's great, and it motivates them, and they gain diplomas, and they gain like coins where they can that they can use later on a store, like a digital store, and they can buy a pet or things. So it's very engaging, and they do love math. And what I've seen is that in the Montessori classrooms, students absolutely love math. That's their favorite thing. I saw that in the classroom with you. That was their thing. They love math because they use the manipulative. It's just so fun. And at Meraki, we don't have all the Montessori materials, but we have Smartick. And our students love math. They are very engaged into learning, but they don't feel that it is like oh, it is so hard for me. No, they love it and they enjoy it. And they are waiting for that moment of the day. And that's what technology does and helps. It also helps you to differentiate learning, because it is like a very easy way to make like an individualized plan and send it to them, or using tools like Seesaw or Dojo, Class Dojo, for example, to have their portfolios and to send them work to do in class or homework too. So those are tools that are very helpful for the teacher to differentiate learning, because otherwise it would be crazy to give them like individualized work. Technology is just a tool to help us be better at teaching too.
And I really do like that merging of technology with the touching of materials. It's interesting because this connection to, whether it's materials or connection to each other in the classroom, really was changed through the COVID experience, when everybody kind of went to their homes and got separated. And I remember something very unique about Mac was just the closeness and the connection, and being very connectable there, to then this complete separation. And I'm wondering, how has it been to come out of that? Is there, I don't know, a way of reinstilling that connection between each other, the connection with yourself, the connection with the school itself, or has it been more separate from the COVID experience? How is it to come back from that?
Well, it has been a challenge for all teachers and but for all people around the world to have this disconnection. It's not only at schools, but we know that there are certain stages of life where socialists, they are in the stage where they are learning how to socialize, how to interact, what it is good or bad. So they've lost like 1 year of opportunities of learning, because those are things that you don't teach on a book or on a program, or you cannot just teach them. Well, of course you can, it could help to teach them on stories, right, on storybooks like but the real learning is in the everyday socialization. So the only way to teach them how to solve problems or to hang out or for collaboration is through the day-by-day interactions and real examples and real experiencing it and practicing it. So most of the students lost 1 year of opportunities of learning that. So it has been a challenge to come back from being by themselves or having maybe no guidance at all on that area, right? And just coming back. So what we did at Meraki is to pay attention to that, to make it like a priority. So we started the school year prioritizing that area, like self-awareness and interactions. Because if you're not okay with yourself and you don't know how to interact properly, and you don't have like basic skills such as controlling your body, you know, like or organizing your ideas and your day by day, then how can you learn academics? So we did spend a good part of the first month of the school year just practicing those things and giving it a lot of importance. And then we started going through the academics more deeply because they are ready, because now they are ready and they are engaged and they are okay with themselves.
I remember that one of our strategies in the classroom that we used for how they could connect with each other was through the peace table and the use of, we used the talking feather at that time, or there's many classrooms that do the talking rows. Would you say that you would recommend that? Is that an effective strategy for facilitating connection and communication?
To be honest, I think that it's the best strategy. Like it does help, and it helps for adults too. Like we should do that at home too, you know, because it is just learning how to listen attentively to others, and it's just bringing love because most of the problems among people and among countries too are perceptions. It's just perception. So talking about how I feel or how I felt in certain situation, for example, like you pushed me and I felt bad about it. I didn't like it. Maybe if I tell you that, instead of just being mad about it and just maybe push you back, if I tell you how I feel, maybe I'm giving you the opportunity to tell me why you did it. Maybe it was not on purpose, like, oh, it was an accident. I didn't even realize that I pushed you. And then if I am listening attentively and I learn how to trust too, then we can just solve it without making it bigger. But if we don't know, if we don't teach the students how to talk and listen, then how can they solve things? I learned that as an adult. And it is a skill for life. I think that's more important than many of the academics, just to listen to each other. And so that's how the peace feather works. Just when I have it, you're listening to me and I feel heard and acknowledged. And then I give you the opportunity to speak. And it's so amazing to see young students do it because they look so emotional, intelligent, and many adults they don't know how to do it.
Right. It was meaningful for me to see that they could learn the skill of what I call reflective listening, right? So that it's not just like, okay, I get the rose now or the feather, and then I say, well, that's not fair. No, I have to say what I heard you feel. Oh, I heard you say that you felt bad when I pushed you. I didn't mean to push you. Then I can respond, or, well, it made me sad that you wouldn't play with me. Whatever it is that they want to then make as their point comes after they reflectively, they reflect on what did you just say. And I think you're right. It's an important adult skill.
It's really like, and then it just when you teach them that, and when they learn that, and they just start doing it by themselves, and then the classroom starts working by itself. You don't have to solve things for them anymore, or you don't have to be there anymore, because they learn how to do it, and they learned how not to take things personal too. Like maybe it wasn't personal, maybe it was for a reason. And they just start talking. It's an important skill. And also as a teacher, to talk effectively with your students and be able to maybe have a conversation with a student that is not or is behaving in a way that is frustrating you too. You can just say how you feel too and model it. Like, I'm just feeling that that you're in, like, you what happened today, right? Like, because you were interrupting the class and I planned something for today, and it wasn't working because you were behaving like this. Why did you do it? Or maybe tell them I was feeling frustrated because I planned something for today. I and then they just listen, and they are building empathy too, just feeling what the teacher, or understanding how the teacher feels too, and they react to that, and then they start behaving better, not because you're telling them to behave better, but because they understand what their behavior causes and why it is important to interact nicely with others, right?
And I really wanted to say that I saw so much value in that honesty as a teacher, when as a teacher talking to her students, like, let's sit down and talk about what's going on, whether it was one kid getting scapegoated or blamed, or an issue between the first and second grade, or whatever might have come up, being authentic and real about it, sitting down on the floor in a circle and say, we've got some things to talk about. And so class meeting times where you really are prioritizing the energy of the group in order to clear what might be issues that are blocking positive energy, and try to rebuild that, heal the hurt parts.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I also recognize, like, we're starting to run out of time, but I want to touch on two things. We talked about COVID and how it really created change, and yet it was also a time of transformation because we all had to go through so much adjustments, and learned, that technology can be very helpful and valuable also. And some of the things that happened also are that mothers learned they liked the time with their kids. You've
Mm-hmm.
also connected with mothers who have had a desire to continue homeschooling. We are addressing homeschooling as part of this overall summit. I know that you also coach homeschooling moms and fathers, and that's a valid option in the path of education. And I'm just wondering about how that's showing up for you.
Yes, I think that as you said, this COVID was like an opportunity too. It was a challenge, but an opportunity to learn a lot about ourselves, to spend time with our families. And for many families, it was like, oh, we do like spending time together. And you know what? I love teaching, because that's not for all moms, or all fathers, but they that it just happened naturally, because some families started reaching out to me, just asking for advice. And I was so honored and happy to just help them to know what the students needed at certain stages, or just giving them some advice. So what I do now is, um, I don't teach the students. I help the moms and teach the moms how to teach. I give them ideas of materials they can do at home, manipulatives that they can do at home, how to use them. I give them advice about positive discipline, about projects, and about all the outcomes. If they want to follow the SEP outcomes, okay, then I give them like a list of outcomes and ideas and exercises and about how to do them. And with some of them, I do sporadically, or sometimes online lessons for the students, or assessments, just to be sure that they are building knowledge properly, or tutoring at home if it's in Cancun. But just sometimes it's not like a full-time thing. It's just part of the guiding them and going through that process with them. And I love it. I absolutely love it, because I think that that's the natural way of, like, homeschooling is a great way to teach, because it gives you freedom. And I have seen amazing projects with homeschool families, because they can go to museums, or just to travel together and go through all the learning outcomes that I just told you that we do at school with mini projects, but with all these like a whole world of opportunities. So I invite moms that like teaching to try it, because it is amazing how kids can grow if they have this freedom, like if you follow them and just let them explore the world.
Well, that's a great bridge into the final question I'll ask you is, this issue of freedom, and we're talking about empowering children through allowing choice. And as a teacher who has become an administrator this year, you know both sides of it. We were fortunate to have our director, Teresita Lemire, trust us a great deal in order to be able to have the room to create and try different learning modalities and really be able to focus on the project-based learning, as to what fit into our learning environment. And I was super grateful for that trust. There was certainly accountability, and yet there was a lot of freedom. And I'm wondering, as a teacher who's now an administrator of other teachers, holding them accountable, how are you integrating freedom into your current learning environment for the teachers?
Yes. Okay, well, first, as you said, you need to trust the teachers to choose them wisely, like to really see what it is like inside of them, that they love teaching, that they are prepared to, and that they have this vision of the whole child, and that they really prioritize the what we're saying is important, that the students find themselves, right? So that's the first thing. So in that way you can also start having learning checklists, rubrics, just to be sure that they are covering what is expected, just because you can, it's freedom comes with responsibility and with order. You know, in order to be free, you have to have some order to be sure that you're not losing yourself into the project, because you can be easily lost into just exploring and enjoying, and that's part of it. But just, okay, let's come back to what I need to cover, right? So using rubrics, checklists, setting up clear expectations, and trusting the teachers, holding accountability to end the goals, the learning outcomes, and guiding them. I mean, I'm still balancing all of that. I'm still in the process of becoming a better administrator. It's part of the learning, and I do think that to be part of this revolution of education, we have to be what we expect kids to be, which is like active learners. So I don't think I have the right answer to that. I'm just still exploring it and being like a scientific every day, just becoming better and better and learning from mistakes. And I do think we are, well, I've seen that the students love going to school. They are learning when they present the projects, because we do three projects through the school, three big projects through the school year, and they every trimester they present their project to the parents, and their presentations show the learning outcomes, or some of the learning outcomes that they should learn in that school year. And you can really see that they are learning. You don't need to give them a test, like a traditional test, to see their knowledge. They become experts and they show what they are learning. So that way we have seen that it is working, and they don't want to lose a day of school, you know. Then
This
you
is a
can see
lot.
that they enjoy being part of this, and we're just improving every day.
Mm. And you are like a scientist, and I think it's the perfect answer to say, I'm in process. It's still a process, because then we're modeling that love for learning, which is really what we want to cultivate, as a lifelong process. Well, I just thank you so much for sharing so many pearls of wisdom. Estoy muy agradecida para tu capacidad de hablar en inglés conmigo. I still need to practice my Spanish, but I also want to really encourage, if there are listeners in our audience whose Spanish is their first language, it's an excellent opportunity to reach out to you and be able to talk in a way that's maybe a way that helps you think clearly, if that's, Spanish is your first language, or if you want to grow a relationship with Mexican schools. I mean, there's great bridge building opportunities here through connecting to you personally. And it's a very generous offer to share, a little consultation for free. We will have that link, but I also want to acknowledge your website is Meraki, MERAKI school.com.mx for Mexico. And those links will be in your backlink. As well as your email as well, right?
Thank you. I would be really glad to to share whatever it feels right for people that wants to change this way to interact with kids. This is what I love. So I'm happy to have this time with any homeschoolers or even other schools that wants to, or that we can share, not only from me. I love listening to and learning from others. So I'm happy to connect. And I just want to say before we say goodbye that, as I said before, we are being part of an educational revolution. Before, there were only like a few visionaries like Maria Montessori or Freire or others, but now there's an increase, like a constant increase on educators that are changing their way to see education of schools, or even governments that are changing the way of teaching all the paradigms. They're really changing and becoming better, but it is also because there's people like you that put their hearts and time into helping to raise awareness and inspire other educators about how necessary it is to transform education through this integral vision of being. And I think it is very important what you do. Thank you for that, Diane. I feel very I admire you very much, and I have learned a lot from you. And thank you for inviting me and for touching the lives of so many people, and especially mine.
And it is a paradigm shift. And I just want to say, I featured a whole page on my website on the Modern Academy in Cancun experience that we shared, because those pictures really captured the aliveness of that classroom. So transformededucation.com is my website, and there is a page just about our classroom experience and the leadership from Teresita talking about learning to read at early ages. And so there's a lot of good information. When we come together as community, it empowers one another. And it's given me a lot of power and energy just to feel connection over continuity of time with you. And I say thank you.
Thank you.
Muchísimas gracias, mi amiga.
Gracias. Hasta luego. Hasta pronto.
Hasta pronto.